Mom. Oh, look at that finger pointing.
Yeah.
Who is your favorite in here, though? Who's your favorite person? Oh, mommy is today? Usually it's Ella. Usually it's this one.
Yeah. Big
Yeah.
sis.
Yeah.
Big sister. She's pretty much your favorite, isn't she? Would you stop riling her up?
Well, do you think we sit down and talk? a
No,
little bit
absolutely.
about
Let's
Maddy?
do it.
This is like looks like a comfortable couch in the history.
Yeah,
It is,
This might.
I was
Yeah.
This might be nap time.
just I was gonna say
There- a lot of
warning,
napping
you may
happens-
sink in and be
happens on
unable to
this.
get out.
Oh
so
my gosh.
Just come make yourself cozy and comfy and
for football day, like you wouldn't even need to leave. Like you just.
I don't
load
even know
up.
where to go.
Here, I can climb out. You
Here.
I'll dive in over here.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh
okay.
my gosh,
You're
yeah.
gonna have to help me.
Ella. Where? What? You don't? No, don't sit on the back of the couch.
Oh,
Just
hello.
because people are here doesn't
Hello.
mean you get to break the rules.
Hello.
My kids do that too.
all right,
What do you
ladies,
think?
You're gonna have to slide over the corner because I don't know if Daddy will get out of the
Well,
corner.
I'm a little fearful now that I got in.
It is one of those. This is
This
where I'm
is
going to spend the
great.
majority of my Christmas break, right here.
Hey, can I?
Watch
How
movies.
did you get this piece of furniture? That had to be a lot of fun getting it down here.
I'm not sure fun is the word
didn't,
I would.
I didn't do anything.
Oh.
Nebraska Furniture Mart.
Oh, perfect. That's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah,
That's
yeah,
where
I'm
it's
paying the
going.
extra. You guys bring it on down, assemble it down there. When we ever move, it will probably stay. And like,
Come here, lady.
yeah,
Oh, hey,
I
we're
bet
just
this
going
is
to
a
talk
great
for a little
couch
bit.
for Maddie too, because you guys can all hang out and she can kind of.
She rolls all
roam
over.
and-
Yeah, she loves it. Huh. Oh.
Do you want to come sit over here? Come sit by
You want to
me.
go sit over there?
you got her.
We may physically be in Hiawatha, Kansas, but it feels like we are in Nebraska. The Go Shout Love team just got a tour of Maddie's room, and we are heading downstairs where we enter into Nebraska Husker fandom. It's a great setting to meet and talk to this family. And this is the second of two families we are featuring in this month, both with extraordinary girls named Maddie. Only 80 miles apart in Kansas, with different diagnosis, but equally incredible families. Same storm, different boats. I am Seth Carnell, and this is the Go Shout Love podcast. Today we are talking to Kimberly and Brent, who are the parents to their daughters Allie, and of course Maddie, who is 8 years old and has UBA 5 gene mutation. In this conversation from Go Shout Love, we have Josh Veach, our executive director, Jessica Santo, our family relations director and photographer, and occasionally you might hear me in the background, along with little dog Ella. Kimberly and Brent have built for themselves a loving and beautiful family with two girls who absolutely adore each other. One thing we get in this episode besides their story is we hear about Maddie from her sister's point of view. Allie can tell us about Maddie like nobody else.
I am curious about the dynamic. You said that sis is the favorite
Mhm.
typically. So I'm just curious,
Mhm.
like what it's been like to have a daughter and then to have another daughter that has gone through some extra
Absolutely.
challenges, unique situation, and what that relationship's like.
So Allie, like I always said, perfect, like great pregnancy. Loved every minute of being pregnant with her. She was actually a month early and was jaundiced. We were in the hospital for a week, but she loved the Billy Lights. She laid under them like she was sunbathing for, hours. Went home, has been, she's a really good kid. I get on her a lot, but she's a pretty good kid. And then Maddie came along, and my pregnancy with Maddie was not the same. I had a lot of bleeding in my first trimester and a lot of, stress with that. And then the birth was awful. It was terrible. And she ended up having to be vacuumed out, and then she was jaundiced and she was under the Billy Lights for 7 days as well, but she hated every minute of it and cried the entire time. And so just two completely different pregnancies. We definitely thought we were having a boy because it was such a different pregnancy. So we didn't have girls' names picked out until I was pushing in the hospital, which was a little stressful. But ever since, from the time she came out, they have been like best buddies. And I mean, like, they don't have a typical sister relationship. They don't fight. They don't, most of the time. Sometimes she does get annoyed with her. But they are each other's people. I mean, you know, Allie has stepped up and really helped out with Maddie anytime we need to. And she's not scared to do anything with her. She carries her all over the house. She changes her diapers. She does, you know, the one thing she won't do is give her meds because it's kind of scary. But other than that, I mean, they just, you know, like the love between them just shows. There's no, you know, you look at the two of them, you can tell they just are each other's people. So, it's just been, I would say, I always tell people about Allie, like, they're like, she's such a great kid. She has so much empathy for other people. I mean, she just feels so hard for others. And I always say, well, that has nothing to do with my parenting. It has everything to do with her sister. And I think she's starting to see now how people are starting to treat Maddie a little differently as she's getting older. And it hurts to the core sometimes. But just, I mean, she's an advocate. She, you know, one thing I think Maddie has done for her is taught her that everybody's different and it's okay to be different. It's okay to like people that are not like you, which is huge for me, especially in my profession, that not a lot of kids have that at the 6th grade level. And so, and, but so, yeah. And then Maddie just adores her. Anything her sister does is hilarious. Even if it's driving her mother crazy. I'm like, oh my, stop. And Maddie just laughs and thinks everything she does is funny. Yeah. You just want to snuggle? What are you doing?
That's another favorite hobby is snuggling.
Yes, we are pretty snuggly.
Snuggle up, buttercup.
We're not going to watch football right now. But yeah, so I mean, it's a uniquely awesome relationship that they have. And, they would do anything for each other, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she gets annoyed with her at times, and anytime Maddie has friends over, she would like to be the center of attention, and she's not, and that makes her angry.
Yeah.
But her friends as well. I mean,
that's
Allie's
also
friends.
part of being little sis.
It
Like,
is, absolutely,
little
yeah.
thing to do.
Yeah.
If Seth, if Allie sits closer to Dad, do you think she would be picked up?
I'll give her mine.
No, I want you to be able to.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I can still hear her, and I
if
have
she's-
some camera audio too.
Yeah, so if you want to sit a
Come
little
here,
closer,
later.
because I'd love to hear your take on things too,
There we go.
especially
There you
on the piece that Mom was just talking about, kind of like adjusting to seeing how other people might treat sister a little bit different sometimes. I'm curious, what have you experienced that has been maybe hurtful or challenging that you've had to experience?
Well, a lot of times they treat her like a baby, which she's not.
That's interesting because I think that sometimes people do that because they don't really know how to say or how to act or what to do, and so I think that can sometimes naturally come out. But that's a really good point. You're not a baby, are you?
You're a big girl.
Yeah, it's kind of deceiving because she is smaller in stature, obviously, and so it's kind of that default sometimes where, you know, they'll start talking to her like a baby, you know, baby talk and stuff, and it's like, no, she's 8.5.
So what, like, to a friend, maybe you have a friend who's talking to her that way, or maybe treating her differently than what you would like her to treat your sister. What tips, what advice would you tell that friend to say, instead of this, treat her like this? What would you say?
Instead of, like, you know, talking to her like a baby, talk to her like she's me. Or any other 8-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And don't go, she doesn't like when you make, like, sounds at her.
Right.
That's really good advice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have
My
you had
sisters
other
also
friends
have
that have gotten to know her and kind of have learned some of those lessons?
Yeah, like, a lot of my closer friends,
She's just Maddie to them then, yeah.
she's just Maddie.
Yeah.
You know, and at the beginning of the year, you know, COVID was still crazy, and our school decided you could wear a mask or you couldn't wear a mask. It was your choice. And so Allie decided to wear a mask for her sister. And, you know, sometimes her friends were like, why are you wearing a mask? And, you know, she's like, they just don't understand, Mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you know, that's hard. So we talked a lot about how can we tell them without being rude and disrespectful. dog.
She's good.
But you know, so just things like that, or just recently, you know, like she's realizing now that as she's getting bigger, it's harder for people to pick her up and, you know, do things with her. And so she, you know, has a lot of questions about, well, why don't other people do the things that we do with her? And stuff like that. So that, you know, it's getting
Those are
harder
really
as she's
tough.
getting
I mean,
older.
those are good questions, but they're tough questions because there's, it's, you know, it's hard sometimes to know, like, you don't know exactly what someone else is okay with. And so you
Right.
know, that's
Yeah.
hard to know.
What do you love the most about your sister?
She makes everyone smile. Like,
Yeah.
if you're having a bad day and you look at her and she's like just laughing hysterically, you automatically laugh with her.
It has to make you guys pretty proud to hear her talk about
It does.
her. And
It does.
you can definitely tell there's a big love between them.
Yep.
Yeah.
I bet Maddie and I sat on it.
Oh, what's in there?
I bet.
So you said your pregnancy was tough. Everything was different.
It was.
And so when Maddie came along, did that calm for a minute, or did some of the
it did
chaos
not.
continue?
So she cried 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the first 6 months of her life. I think back about it and I feel awful because I truly don't remember the first 6 months of her life. I was finishing my master's program and I vividly remember nights of sitting, holding her as tight as I could because that was the only thing that made her stop crying, and typing on became really good at typing my computer like this. I was sleeping like an hour a night for 6 months because I was the only one that could calm myself enough to be able to comfort her and not let her cry. And we thought she was colicky, and then we found out it was dystonia, which we found out is extremely painful, and it's like your muscles are just being twisted and turned, and you know, and so, you know, like that was stressful. She was not gaining weight, and so we got sent to the Failure to Thrive clinic at Children's Mercy, which I think is the worst name for a clinic. And so, so, you know, just that, like, from then on, and then she had a lazy eye, and that's kind of what started our entire journey. Because his dad was blind in one eye. So we thought, okay, that's genetic. She may have, she's very persistent, by the way. She won't stop. Just, you know.
think we should do that.
We don't really, she has been double vaccinated, just, but, so, you know, we weren't hoping that she had a lazy eye, but that's something we definitely deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything came back normal with her eyes, and they sent it to neurology. And then from then on, it was like, that's where our journey began, was then. And, yeah.
And that journey was not one that was quick to a diagnosis.
It was not. It was 4 years, a little over 4 years. She got diagnosed about a week after her 4th birthday.
And what was the official diagnosis after that?
The UBA5 gene mutation. That's it. That's the name of it. And it was, we have a name. Yeah.
And if people haven't heard of that, there's probably a reason for that.
Right. It's very rare. So she was diagnosed on July 7th of 2017. And at that time, she was the first in the United States to be diagnosed, and one of 8 in the world.
Wow.
And then, since then we're somewhere between 20 and 30. We don't know for sure exactly how many, but,
and you have found
still very rare.
a little community, right, of other kiddos?
We have. So a month after she was diagnosed, our neurologist called and said, "Hey, crazy, but we just diagnosed another kid with UBA5." Same neurologist, lived in Topeka, Kansas, an hour away from us. And there was only 8 in the world at the time. Yeah. And so they said, "Can we give them your information?" Absolutely. And instantly we called them, met them, I guess they got diagnosed in August, but we didn't really find out about them until September, October, and we met them in December. And from then on, I mean, they are like part of our family now. their son passed away at the age of, he was 2, almost a little over 2, I believe. And so UBA5 is a huge, it's like the spectrum of what we know about it. Our neurologist calls her the unicorn of the UBA5 gene mutation because all of the paperwork that's written does not look like Mady. It talks about it being a degenerative disorder, seizures from even in utero. And, you know, many of the kids that have UBA5 have feeding tubes and, you know, they don't have controlled seizures. I mean, their seizures are out of control and, you know, hundreds upon hundreds a day. And so, when we first got the diagnosis, he was like, this is not Mady. Yeah. But it was, I mean, like, obviously there is a gene that is mutated and it's this gene and she had some of it. And so
but every day she's not living up to what the
right,
science
absolutely.
says she should be displaying. Yeah.
And so, we don't, I mean, you know, we don't know honestly anything about, I mean, we know, but for her, we don't know. There is, I think the oldest one is in his 20s and he has had seizures his whole life and doesn't present anything like what Mady presents. And so, you know, for so long we wanted answers. We wanted to know, what does her life look like? You know, what can we look at? And, then we got this UBA5 gene mutation and it was like, okay, so tell us, what does that mean? And they were like, we have no idea. And we still really have no idea. Yeah. I mean,
because at that point there had been one study done in Europe and that had involved 7 kids from around the world. And so when she was diagnosed, that was essentially all that we had, you know, research wise to go on. Mm-hmm. So that's okay.
And there are a couple others that are younger than her now that have been diagnosed that are presenting almost exactly as she presented as a kid, or, you know, as a young, younger.
Did she have a feeding tube?
No, she never had a feeding tube.
Never had one.
Nope. That was something she continually gained just enough weight to not. It's something I fought. Our neurologist fought it for us because he said, basically, he put it in layman's terms to us, with dystonia, a kid is burning the amount of calories that you would burn doing a P90X workout all day long. Oh my! Basically, so she's never going to gain weight as a normal person would gain weight because she is burning some. Madeline Marie.
She's working. She's working too hard.
Yeah, and so he was like, she's eating all the time. She was eating so much food and wasn't gaining weight, and it got to the point where they wanted us to wake her up every 2 hours to feed her a bottle. And there were bottles flying across the room, because she wasn't eating. She was screaming. I was crying. I was just angry because I was like, why do we have to do all this? And so then but they said, if you don't feed her in the middle of the night, you have to put a feeding tube in, but we never had to. We made all of her food. I think back to those days and oh my gosh, to put so much extra stuff in it to, awaken her taste buds and those types of things. And now she likes really spicy stuff, loves buffalo wings.
All right. That goes perfect with football.
It does.
You are like the true daddy's girl date.
Yeah.
Yes.
Buffalo wings and football.
So
I'm a pickier eater than she is.
Yeah.
Do you like spicy things?
No. I'm a very picky eater.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Not sissy though.
So how did you find out you like spicy things?
Well, they told me put as many spices in them as you can.
Oh, okay.
And so when I was,
tell you to do that?
Because they said that it would awaken her taste buds, which would make her want to use her tongue more to allow her to push the food back. Because I mean, she has generalized dystonia, so every muscle in her body is affected. I mean, even like the muscles in her eyes don't dilate in the sun. And so she always has to wear sunglasses and stuff. She can't handle sun very well. But so
is everything brighter to her?
Yes, very,
like
very.
Even this room right
yes, here? Yeah. I see. You can tell her no.
No, I can't.
That's what all the people. I tell her no all the time.
That's pretty common too.
Yeah.
Do you get away with everything? Probably not everything, but most things.
For the most part, yeah. It usually comes down to mom and dad to tell her no.
Well, that goes back to what Allie said about her just being able to make everybody smile. Like if you can you can get away with stuff like that when you can charm people.
I mean, that is like from day one, we had Tiny Case come into the house and had the best PT. I mean, she was phenomenal. And without her, we would not have had half the stuff that we had. I mean, like she just opened so many doors for us. She was so knowledgeable. Went with us to her first IEP meeting, which I do IEPs. I know IEPs, but having your own child on an IEP was a lot different. And so she helped us to write the IEP and get everything she needed. But from day one that she stepped foot in her school, she has been like a celebrity. And
Can you
kids-
tell us what IEP stands for?
Individualized Education Plan.
So someone like Maddie would get an IEP to help them achieve what they need to in their school.
Right.
So a specific plan for her.
Yeah. So she has goals written specifically for her. Like a lot of her goals right now are she's working on adding and subtracting, which not a typical 8th grader would already be adding and subtracting those types of things. But then she has goals also for potty training and for walking, and PT and OT have goals on there. Physical therapy and occupational therapy have goals on there as well. Speech therapy.
Do you get that therapy, PT and OT here in Hiawatha?
It happens through her school. So the school does it there.
My husband's the director of PT in Bell City.
Okay.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
So he works with Rehab Visions here in Hiawatha.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we are going to this summer look into doing some more specialized therapy, like aqua therapy, because that is right now we're really wanting to work on. Now that she has kind of get a hang of myself, last year, about a year ago, August, she had a deep brain stimulator placed. So what that is, it was an 8-hour longest day of my life surgery.
Brain surgery.
Brain surgery. Yeah. And so
Yeah,
they
me too.
basically have 2 electrodes that they put into her brain to within a millimeter of the dystonia, where the dystonia originates from. And those electrodes then run down the side of her. I mean, you can see the cord on her neck.
Oh, wow.
And then, so it runs behind and then it runs down, and you can lift up her shirt and you can see there's a,
That's
I
her.
saw that
That's her.
earlier.
Yeah, that's
So
her generator.
that's her generator. We named it Sally.
So Sally is a little machine.
Mhm.
inside of
That's
And
that's
it has,
the battery pack. Yeah,
yeah.
that powers the whole system. And
Can we
so-
get that on
oh,
camera?
absolutely. Yeah.
can you show him Sally?
Look at
Can you show him
Sally? Look at Sally. Does that bother her?
Wow.
And it doesn't anymore. It used to, but she's so used to it, it doesn't bother anymore. But then, so there's like 6 electrodes in there. Then every month we go to the neurologist and he
Oh, bless you.
programs
Oh, bless you.
Madeline.
Bless you.
I know, all day.
But yeah, so he programs her, and there's like 3 different channels he can change, or 3 different things he can change. And I don't know, voltage, something. And so every month we go, and it is phenomenal to see what I mean, like, we grab her so she stops messing with her mask.
Let's move you. Let's go over here. Yeah.
Hi.
You can sit by Josh too.
Now he's gonna hey, leave their masks alone. Maddie, look at mom.
Hey, does this doggy like to be pet?
Can you leave their masks alone, please?
Maddie does not like
So there's
it
the pouty face.
when-
She doesn't like it when mom tells her no.
Are you saying no?
Ella
What does this word mean?
You're
Maddie
silly.
does not like it when Ella like sits on her lap and like licks her, and she like she like
kind of just shoves her off the
Yeah,
couch.
not a big
Which is
dog
something that
person.
she couldn't do a year
Yeah.
ago.
So it's kind of you were glad she's doing it, but
Yeah.
also
Um,
like leave the dog alone.
Yeah. But
That's-
she so like we'll go and
Uh
we'll eat here in a little bit.
are
Okay.
you hungry?
huh.
Is it from
Mhm.
us talking about buffalo wings?
Oh yeah, that'll do
What are
it.
we having for dinner?
I don't know. I haven't thought about that.
I bet you order pizza.
Maybe.
Huh?
And maybe
So
watch
I want to know, what was the process of like learning about and weighing the decision to do that surgery and go that route? Because that couldn't have been an easy decision to make.
It actually was very easy.
It was.
Our neurologist, Keith Kaufman at Children's Mercy, we owe him millions and millions of dollars. Like, he has been phenomenal. He actually, so she got diagnosed through the Undiagnosed Diseases Network. We ran every test possible at Children's Mercy, and everything came back normal. And so he said, our last ditch effort, Kim, is, I mean, we went to Colorado and got a second opinion,
Is
and
that kind of like Mayo?
no, it is. I mean, not necessarily. Obviously, there was something wrong. and we knew that, and her neurologist knew that and everything, but every test that he ran came back normal. I mean, we did an MRI, completely normal. We did a CT scan, a lower lumbar puncture that tested all the metabolic levels in her body and in her brain, all completely normal. At one point he was like, guys, I think she just has a lack of dopamine. And Ella, come here. Hey, Ella, come here. And we were like, what? So what's that mean? He's like, that means that we give her dopamine supplements and she develops normally. And I was like, holy cow, yes. I mean, that would be so easy. For the rest of her life, we can give her dopamine. And then dopamine levels came back normal. And and then we went to Colorado and got an opinion. And she told us it was this disorder that was degenerative and it would deteriorate her because she had way too much iron in her brain. And she would pass away within the next 2 years. And so we were like, no, that can't be what it is. And we talked to our neurologist here. He's like, we've already ran the test for that. It's not that. And so, just all of these things that nobody knew what it was. And he was like, he would not call it cerebral palsy. That's what I diagnosed with when she was 3 months old, with cerebral palsy. He would not call it cerebral palsy. He's like, there's something else. It's not, it mimics it, but it's not the same. And so,
had genetic testing done at children's.
Yeah.
They actually did identify the UBA5 mutation, but essentially they didn't know that was the issue at that point. It was, it took the Undiagnosed Disease Network for us to go there at Vanderbilt in Nashville, and they kind of went through the testing and said, okay, this is what we think this is, is the root of her issues. So it's, and that was really, it was one day. Yeah. One day at Vanderbilt at their children's hospital there, and a lot of blood work and samples and everything. And then finally kind of identified that as, hey, this is what we're dealing with. And then from there, then figuring out, okay.
How did you feel when you got the diagnosis, when you finally got the words that you guys were looking for?
Oh, it was so
bittersweet.
I don't even know if I would call it that. For me, it was, so the whole journey, our neurologist got us, we had to apply and be accepted into the UDN. We applied and were accepted, and they said, okay, we're going to come down. Usually people spend 5 to 7 days here. You see a bunch of doctors. We'll run a bunch of tests. And then they called and said, hey, we need you to come down for 1 day. And instantly I was like, they're not gonna be able to help us either. And I was like, wait, I thought it was supposed to be 7. And they said, well, we know what it is. And I was like, it was like, what? And so they said, we just need you to come down because there's 2 things that we think it could be. We want to see her. We want to, feel her, whatever.
Was that scary to hear that?
It was scary. It was scary.
Kind of like learning your fate in just some words that are going to be said to you, technically.
Yeah. But at the same time, it was 4.5 or 4 years of waiting. Right. We waited for 4 years. So we booked it as fast as we could. Flew down there, met with them, and they were like, okay, so here's what it is. And we met with a geneticist and a genetics counselor down there. And they said it's a UBA5 gene mutation. I was like, oh, I've never heard of that. And they're like, well, there's a reason you've never heard of it. It's very rare. And she's the first one in the United States and one of 8 in the world.
What was that feeling like?
It was so okay, it was cool at first to be like, my daughter's the first one in the United States.
Yeah. It's like get a lottery ticket.
I've learned since then that a lot of kids were told they were the first, but from the diagnosis dates, Maddie actually was the first. But it was like, okay, okay, let's do this.
So are you finding it, are the cases increasing, or more based on science and whatever they're able to figure out that this is what it is?
Yeah, I think that, as it's not new.
The ability to diagnose is improving.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now that they know that this gene affects the body in this way, people that have gone without diagnosis forever. There's some people that diagnosed after Maddie that are a lot older than Maddie. And I'm like, I could not have gone. I would have gone 13 years without knowing, but can you imagine waiting 13 years? There could be somebody
listening right now that might have a bunch of these symptoms. And they're like, well, wait a second. It sounds a lot like.
Absolutely. And so it was great to have a name, but then I asked the question, okay, so what does that look like? And they were like, we can't answer what that's going to look like for her extended. And so
I
think it was
the bittersweet part to me.
Yeah.
Was okay, we've got it, and so now what?
yeah.
We
You're
have a
supposed
name,
to guide us
but
on it,
not
so you
much
can't
else
do
but
to
that.
no
with
info to
that.
go with. Okay, what this actually means for her
Sure.
going forward in terms of okay, hey, normally you get a diagnosis. It's like, all right, here's our plan of action. There's no plan of action.
So you're sitting in that room and you're finding out all this information. I want to know what you would tell yourself now, back then.
Mm. I mean, honestly, like knowing something was wrong the whole time, finding out it was this very rare genetic mutation. One of the biggest things that I would, if I was in somebody else's shoes, I would say, ask all the questions, ask every question you have, ask them all. And if you don't get the answer you want, ask somebody else. And then, like advocate. And, we mourned for not really mourned, but we were pissed for a little while just because it was like, at that point, I think I stopped looking into her future. And,
you have to you go through a grieving process. Yeah, we've heard that.
Yeah,
like
there's
what is she going to do? When are these seizures going to start? Because at that point, she wasn't having seizures yet. Like they're telling us this is a degenerative disorder. They're telling us that our daughter's probably going to pass away by the time she's 12. They're telling it, like all of these things that they're telling us. And so all those dreams you have for your kids when they're little, like, oh my gosh, I wonder what she's going to be when she grows up. I wonder, if she's going to get married, like all those things that you plan for stopped at that point because what it looked like. But, and then it was after we got back that and we found another family. That was probably the best feeling I've had in this whole journey, was knowing that there was somebody else who knew exactly how I felt that I could talk to.
Where'd you find that person?
Topeka, Kansas.
Yeah.
Topeka, I meant like on social media. They were in Topeka, Kansas.
This was the other group
Yeah.
that
wow.
That your neurologist followed up with.
And how far is that from here?
An hour.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and so her name's Amber Smith. I asked her if I could say her name. She said it was fine. But she, we called them and instantly we were like, we've got to do something. Any other family that's in this place, like you look up UBA5 and it's not there. Like you can't Google it yet. And so we instantly started a Facebook page called Life with UBA5 Gene Mutation, just to have something to be Googleable. I mean, like that's not even a word, but
what did you say? Googleable?
Googleable.
Searchable.
I think it is a word now. Technically, I think it's a
I can make
Googleable.
Googleable. I've never.
So able to be Googled.
Yes, able to be Googled. Able to be found.
I may have just made the word up.
You're getting very excited.
I do love
you
words.
love your words.
Sorry, back to the.
But I mean,
Word of the
like
year.
that was one of the biggest things because you really couldn't, and anything that would pop up was completely like bizarre. You couldn't understand it anyway.
Yeah.
And so we did that, and then we decided let's start a foundation, which may have been one of the scariest things we've ever decided to do because we were clueless, had no idea.
Yeah.
And this is still with the other family?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Amber and I started this foundation together. And
Now, how old's her child?
well, he was 2 when he passed away.
Sorry.
And so, he started having infantile spasms, and then just a lot of degeneration in the brain. And they had a lot of really hard choices they had to make. And until you're put in that position, you don't know what you would make. And so, but yeah, so we are forever, bonded in a way that, not many people know,
Yeah.
It's a group that neither one of us ever wanted to be a part of, but we're glad we have each other for sure. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so that was kind of the craziest part of it all. And then since then we've had, I think we have met somewhere between 20 and 30 other families have joined our Facebook page. And there's another family that just found out their son has UBA5 gene mutation, and he's presenting a lot like Maddie. And they were gung-ho and started their own foundation right away, and they have a lot more avenues. Like they know what they're doing a lot more than we do. So they are doing some fundraising, but through the UDN, one of the greatest things that we have found, we were able to go as a family in 2019 to DC and talk at the UDN National Conference. And the NIH was there, which is the National Institutes of Health, and talk about UBA5. And there was a couple researchers there that had already kind of started doing research on fish.
Well,
what are they?
There's a group that was working on fruit flies,
Fruit flies. That's right.
and then another one that was working on
Zebrafish?
Zebrafish, yeah.
And so we actually have been in contact with them, and they are progressing in that research. We are currently trying to raise some money to help them with that funding or with that research and stuff, so that in hopes we can find what medicine works best for kids with UBA5, because we have not found, I mean, Maddie, we have been very, very lucky with meds with her. But a lot of other families have not found anything to help with the dystonia or with the seizures and that type of stuff.
So I want to go back to the question on the surgery.
Oh,
Because
oh my gosh, we did get all the way off
that
track.
is
Okay.
no, you're fine. I'm just still like, that's having my child go into brain surgery, an 8-hour brain surgery. And you said that wasn't a hard decision at all.
It really wasn't.
No.
So our neurologist, that's where it all started. Our neurologist has a child with epilepsy. And anytime we are making a decision, I say, okay,
If this was your
if
child.
this was your child.
Yeah.
And he has told me sometimes I wouldn't, Kim, or absolutely I would. And he told me about this.
Yeah.
And when we started talking about when she was 5, and FDA won't approve it until they're 7. And so we had a couple years, obviously to
Got
back
it.
out if we wanted to.
Yeah.
And more research or more cases to
Right.
watch
Yeah.
to see how things are going with other
And
people.
so he said, I said, if this was your kid, and he was like 110%. And, and we were like, let's do it. And,
We
just
asked
as
about
the
the
years
guy
gone.
that was doing the surgery,
Yeah,
and he
and-
was like, he is like literally, in terms of pediatric, this procedure, he is like the
There's-
Michael
yeah.
Jordan of it.
Mhm.
And we're like, okay, that makes me feel good.
So you said they put 2
2 electrodes,
electrodes
that
near
run on
where the
both sides of her
dystonia
brain.
is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then there's a pack that is just inside of her,
Mhm.
Mhm.
but in kind of in her abdomen off to the
Yep.
side.
Yep.
And when was that surgery done?
August 24th of 2009. Nope,
20.
20. Okay, so
Yeah.
she's year and change into that. And what have you seen since that surgery?
So, oh gosh, guys, she just her fluidity in doing things, like the movements that she can do, the more precise things. She can move her fingers in isolation, which she never could do before, so she can count with her fingers. She
Can you count?
can you show 'em I love you? You're not
Oh, you're
counting.
counting now.
Oh, no,
I love you. Do I love you?
you got to help that pinky
So
yet.
Those
pinkies.
pinkies can be.
Yep, there you go.
Yay!
Good
So that's
job.
something she just started doing. Sticking her
Good
tongue
job.
out. Can you stick your tongue out?
Can you stick your tongue out now?
So these things we didn't realize she couldn't do. She could not get her tongue
I
past
see
her
it.
teeth.
Mhm.
So that and just like doing things quicker and with more fluidity, and she can curl her toes, which she could never do before. She can move her ankle in isolation, which she could never do before. Her vocalizations definitely have become more. We're not saying words yet, but
6?
But clearly communicating.
absolutely,
Verbally, yeah.
absolutely. And I've asked her. So he said, like, he has seen huge gains in kids with DBS that have had dystonia. He said the one thing I don't know is how the genetic mutation is going to factor in.
And DBS is the name of the surgery?
Yeah, it's a deep brain stimulator.
Deep brain stimulator.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, and it's actually the same that they use for Parkinson's.
Okay.
It's the same type of surgery. So, but she, I asked him, so I was very disappointed the first time we went and got programmed, because I had it in my head that she was going to jump out of her wheelchair and just start running. And that did not happen. And I was like, really wanted one of those miracle moments.
Right. Yep.
Or that she was going to start saying things. And we always joke that her first word probably is not going to be a very good word. She's probably going to say a naughty word, or, and I'm
And
gonna
you
be
would
okay
celebrate
with it.
anyway.
Yeah.
That's right.
I said she can get in trouble at school. I'll bring her home and feed her ice cream, and then we'll talk about why it's not appropriate to say those words at school. But he's still, I just asked him the other day, what are we like? I shoot me straight, talking and walking, and he was like, yeah, absolutely. Which is not something we ever thought she would do,
Mhm.
and she wouldn't do it without the surgery for sure. So, yeah, it was just an easy decision, just because he said he would do it, and
So how is she cognitively affected by UVA? What has that done for her
That's such a hard question because we don't really know. I mean, like
Mhm.
she knows all of her numbers.
She seems to be very, well, I'm not sure what the word, just attuned to everything going on and understanding what is going on too.
Yeah, and she absolutely does. I mean, like she, knows. I mean, she responds to anything we say, those types of things. She's very with it. Her processing speed has definitely improved with this DBS surgery. And the reason I say it's hard is because we really don't know what's going on in there. I mean, like oh my gosh, she runs her iPad like no other. I mean, she clicks and moves,
That's
and
probably
that's
really good
something-
for her with her pointing and
and that's something she couldn't do before.
understanding.
She couldn't isolate a finger, or she couldn't make sure her hand wasn't completely on the screen. And so we are actually, now she has communication app on her iPad that they're working with at speech. And so,
sometimes it's very annoying because she'll just like click and click and click, and then she can like change the words. I don't even know how to do that.
yeah,
She'll like change the words on there, so it'll be
Yeah.
like, arm, apple, sky, arm.
yeah, I think that's funny, don't you?
She does.
Just smiling.
Yeah.
real
Yeah,
know
she
exactly
thinks
what
it's
you're
That's not
hilarious.
me.
but every day, like it's funny because she'll put on there like, I want to eat crackers. And for a while I ignored it. And then she did it like 3 or 4 times. And I'm like, do you want crackers? And she's like, uh-huh. And then I gave her crackers and she ate all of them. And I was like,
Oh, this is actually working.
holy
Yeah.
cow, she just told me she wanted something
Yeah.
and she got it from her iPad. So then we realized you're ready. Like, so cognitively, I think there's so much more in there that she knows that we don't know she knows because she can't tell us.
Yeah.
People are like, if you could get one thing back. And I always say, if God said, hey, Kim, I want to make your life easier. What one thing would you want me to give her? I always communicate, like, just let her talk to me. That's all like, she doesn't walk. If she doesn't, she's not potty trained yet, which is, for the longest time, it didn't bother me, but now it does. I'm like, she's 8. She should, have big girl panties on. And, but talking to me would be the biggest thing. Like,
But it's cool that she is. Like she's
absolutely.
maybe it's not quite what it could be, maybe someday,
Yeah.
but still the idea that her saying through the iPad, I want crackers. How many times do I need to ask you for crackers?
Exactly. And that's completely new. Like that's something
Yeah.
that,
We want
that
a little
wasn't
bit.
going on
So
even
cool.
3 months ago.
So, and
I'm
you
getting
attribute
tired.
that to what's happening through
Yeah.
that
Absolutely.
brain surgery.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it
Through that
basically,
device.
those electrodes. So dystonia
Maddy,
is like,
yeah, with Maddy.
your brain tells your muscles what to do. And the dystonia basically stops it and says, nope, sorry, your muscles can't do that. Your muscles can't do that. So this surgery essentially blocks the dystonia from communicating, and allows the brain to make the pathways it needs to make.
It's so cool.
Yeah, it is. It is really cool. And we didn't even hesitate.
Yeah.
And I think it also helped that, it was something that Amber and them had already done a lot of research on and had been looking into for Kaysen
Mhm.
as he started getting older. And she was like, you've got to do this for her, Kim. You have to. And so, just having all of that support.
Yeah.
And,
A lot of reaffirming things. Yeah.
absolutely. So,
to
it
mitigate
really
risk.
was an easy
your surgery.
decision.
Talking
for
about
us.
your
Yeah.
surgery
That makes
you had,
sense.
your brain surgery. Remember that?
Yeah. Do you remember that surgery?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brain.
And then every month
And
we
I
go
tell
and
you
get
what,
programmed.
guys, she had surgery on a Monday and we were home on Tuesday.
Oh my gosh.
She
Brain
like,
surgery.
yes.
Yeah.
She was like
I wasn't
phenomenal.
I wasn't even in the hospital where she got the surgery at. I was like 2 hours away
At grandma's. Yeah.
Yeah,
at
you were
my
grandma and
grandma's
papa's.
house because it was my cousin's birthday.
Well, you were there because you couldn't be in the hospital because of COVID, but
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a year to
And-
have a brain surgery.
it was. Well, I will tell you, we did nothing. Well, Maddie and I were hermits the entire summer, because we didn't want anything to stop
how
the
long
surgery.
had you had this scheduled?
Um,
Was it had you had it scheduled pre-COVID?
yeah, we had it scheduled pre-COVID. So we'd had it scheduled back in, it was almost a year in advance because there's different, like we had to do a lot of different, jump through a lot of different hoops. At one point, they weren't going to do the surgery because they thought she was too little. Their neurosurgeon was like, if she's malnourished or whatever, we can't do the surgery because she won't heal correctly. And our neurologist again was like, dude, she's not malnourished. And so we had to go and run all these tests and do all, it's just one thing that I think we're going to always continually fight is that she's not going to grow and gain weight like everybody else. But if you look at us, none of us are huge people by any means. So that's why my family always makes fun of me because I'm the shortest in my family. And I'm like, that's the part of the mutation that I got, because it came from Brent and I both. We each have, so everybody has, or every gene has 2 parts. And I have one of mine is normal and one of mine's mutated, and one of Brent's is normal and one of his is mutated. Allie actually got one of our mutated genes and one of our normal genes. And Maddie got both mutated. When we did the UDN, we had to send all of our blood, and so they tested it all. So,
so is Allie? Well, this is a personal question. So, Allie, you only answer it do you know if you're a carrier of UBA?
She is.
Yeah, you have it recessively.
Yeah.
So that will be something that she will have to look into.
Yeah, if her spouse was to have a mutated,
so if her spouse has one, what are the chances of
25%?
25%.
Yeah. So that's why I really have to
You can stand up.
We always had said, if we have 2 girls, we'll try for a boy.
You can go over there with
but
Sissy.
25% chance is just way too much for me. And there are ways. I mean, there have been people that Amber and them actually went to a fertility clinic that would test for UBA5, and they have a very healthy baby boy now. But we kind of said God gave us 2 beautiful children. We're gonna stop there.
Sure.
So so there would be a 25% chance.
She's getting tall, isn't she?
Grab the ball, please.
Are there any since UBA5 is so new and you're learning so much? Are there any common physical characteristics that the kids share that you've seen?
I mean, not necessarily.
I think they've done a lot of at Vanderbilt, they measured her finger lengths and size of palm, toe length. I mean,
they're all pretty small.
Yeah.
But no, not really. They all look like their family. Really, there's not. Their eyes. A lot of their eyes do look a little different, but I don't know how to explain it. You know what I mean? They're not lazy eyes. They're not. Without the dilation, they all have that distinctive look.
So I am curious about when Maddie was younger, and this is typical with every child, that you are watching closely for milestones and being able to hit milestones. And on a journey like Maddie's, there comes points where the milestones aren't being hit in the same way, and that becomes tough to navigate as a parent. And in some cases, it can be you can be tempted to even obsess on those things. And I'm curious for you guys, how was that journey, especially through a 4.5 year season of not really knowing what's going on? How did you navigate the unknowns of milestones and all of that?
We got really good at celebrating every small thing. I think one of the hardest things. Okay,
she's gonna get it.
I think one of the hardest things was, so my little sister had a baby 2 months after she was born, and my cousin, who I'm really close with, had twins a month before she was born. And so at holiday events, all of those things, they were all doing all the things, and she was laying there. And so that was, you want to play Go Fish? No, okay. That was super hard. But then we started, we just kind of said, we can't compare. That's one thing we learned very early is everybody is going to reach their milestones at their own time. And so we chose to celebrate every small thing that she did, every small new thing that she did. We celebrated as if it was the biggest thing she could ever do. So
I told her all about inch stones. She hadn't heard of inch stones.
Yeah. So it was, and that's kind of, that's still where we're at. She's not walking. She's not saying, all of her words. She doesn't crawl. She army scoots a little bit. But she's, what do you want? Oh, I don't know.
When is payday? I want to know when payday is.
You want to go shopping? You want to know when mom and dad get paid?
You
want to ready for those Husker tickets?
I guess.
You want to tell them what you want to do?
I'm gonna have to get you guys some tickets to that. Has she been to a Husker game yet?
She's been to spring game. Oh no, we did
Minnesota
go to
game.
Yeah, we
the
went
Minnesota game in 2018. We all went. Yeah.
You want milk?
That was Frost's first victory that year. Well, ever, yeah, since he's been
we
here.
can use a few more of them.
I mean, a lot of them.
Want
So
some water? Are you thirsty? Do you want Sissy to go get your water for you?
can you say please? Can you tell her
Can
please?
you say please?
Please. I'm not
Say
gonna go
please.
get it if you don't say please.
Please.
Oh,
There we
good
go.
We do some
job.
signing,
I
not
love
very
that.
much, and that was something that we worked on. But so her physical therapist I talked about from Tiny K was really like, I mean, she was very encouraging, as in, she's not going to do all of the things that you want her to do when she's supposed to do them, and that's okay. And so having her be there and just kind of knock me down a couple notches and be like, you've got to let her be who she is.
And the question
helped.
then becomes, is Mady on Maddie's pace?
Yeah.
And is Mady doing what Mady can do?
Mhm.
And how do we give Mady the tools to let Mady be Mady?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's when, all the equipment comes in, the wheelchair, like that's something else. Her wheelchair, she moves that thing like crazy, and she never could before.
Mm.
And now she's moving, she's maneuvering in between things. And I run the after school program at school, and she goes with me, and she'll leave a classroom and go into another classroom. And before I even know she's gone. And so like, those are just some new things that she's doing. So that in a way is, not a lot of people get to celebrate moving the wheelchair like we do.
Yeah.
So that's kind of her walk. Like, she's walking, and she loves being in her wheelchair. Like, even when we're at home, a lot of times she'll want to sit in her wheelchair so that she can go, because that's a freedom that she has.
Yeah.
Do you need a drink?
I one of the things that I've learned through conversations with families is a repositioning of like the phrase that a lot of people use of wheelchair dependent, as if the wheelchair is a limitation for the child or for anyone. But in reality, like you said, it's a freedom. It's an opportunity for them to be more mobile and to do more. And I think it's really cool to see, to have that perspective shift.
Yeah.
It's helpful for me, at least, and I'm sure others too, that if you've never had to go through that, you're comparing it to what a different, like comparing it to not what they are able to do without it. And it's like, this is actually like giving her the freedom to be able to be her own person and move with minimal assistance. And
Yeah. And and sometimes I think about, man, what is it like to sit on a couch and not be able to go anywhere unless somebody takes you? Like, that would drive me crazy, to be in that position all of the time. And so then you put her in her wheelchair and she shouldn't have to ask for that anymore. And she doesn't have any problem saying, telling us where she wants to go and getting our attention and allowing us to carry her there. But just having that freedom of pushing herself is something that's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned the clinic being called Failure to Thrive, and I know that's a common phrase in the medical especially when you're not sure what's going on. But man, to see her, it is anything but failure to thrive.
Yeah.
She is thriving, and it is so cool.
She's so happy.
Yeah.
She usually is. I feel like we get new diagnosis for her all the time. Like, she just recently got diagnosed with cyclic vomiting syndrome, which is like, she vomits on a cycle every month or so. She has a vomiting episode, and and just crazy stuff like that. She just got diagnosed with anxiety, which I think is so silly, but the medicine is truly, like, she has separation anxiety for the most part. She doesn't like to be away from her mom for very long. And so that was playing a role in a lot of her stuff. But she's, every day she does something different. And I am constantly getting videos and stuff from her paras, like, oh my gosh, look what she did today. I got one from her para the other day. She was writing her numbers, like tracing her numbers perfectly on these things, and she's like, she did it, and I cried. And I'm like, just seeing, knowing how much she has loved the school. She is like a celebrity. She walks down the hallway and everybody's like, wants to talk to her, but she knows where she's supposed to go. And like, if she's going to get medicine and somebody tries to talk to her, she's like, points to the nurse's office, like, leave me alone, I'm supposed to go right there. And
Is she at the same school that you're at?
No, she's at the elementary and I'm at the middle school.
Okay.
She will be in a couple years.
I am at the middle.
So you got to be on extra good behavior. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like that would be a problem, though.
It's not. She's a pretty good kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what grade do you teach English?
Social science. I basically have mainly American history and
In high
American
school,
government.
right?
Yep. so I mainly have like juniors and seniors for the
Well,
most part.
Kendra, who nominated you for Go Shout Love, told me that she would like an A on her final.
Yeah.
I bet she would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she wanted me to tell you
It's
that.
it was a big one. It was a
Yeah.
big one.
She's
So
such a sweet girl.
she is.
She helped with the dance recital a couple days after I had spoken with you, and I walked up and I said, I'm not going to say much to you because if I do, I'll cry, but thank you. And I gave her a hug. She's like, I just love you guys. Sweet.
We're glad she nominated her, and we've gotten to know you guys.
Absolutely.
We have a book that we have on our website called The Thin Skin Gang, and maybe I could talk to Josh, and maybe we could bring it, and Allie could read it to some elementary kiddos.
Yeah.
During the month of her feature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be
That would be
awesome.
really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would
We
be.
probably need to wrap up soon, but
Yeah,
before we
I
do,
need to take some pictures
Okay.
before we go.
yeah, Brent, I'm curious, because you've got these two really cool daughters and unique and awesome in their own ways, and I'm sure you've seen them grow and develop in very different ways over their lifespan so far.
Mhm.
And I'm just curious what it's like to be their dad.
Well, I think probably the first thing is a blessing. I mean, it's I'm an only child, so and so it's kind of one of those things. I didn't grow up like surrounded by kids, obviously, and that, and so it was definitely becoming a father there was a pretty steep learning curve for me, and that still is. So
Yeah, sure.
And a father to girls.
yeah, that was definitely one where it. I mean, obviously, coaching. Most of my coaching has been I've coached guys and that, so this was definitely a whole new ball game. But it's been a blessing. I've a lot less, like football games and more dance recitals, and but it.
Maddie is more of your football girl.
Yes, she
I
is.
don't really sit through a football game.
Not really. She's my outdoor girl though. We do a lot of camping and hiking, and we went rock climbing in the Tetons this last summer.
That sounds
So
awesome.
yeah.
Was.
So I would say it's a blessing, but it's also it's kind of it's almost like two different worlds sometimes, because obviously there's a lot of things that her and I can go do, and then it's kind of I have to shift gears a little bit, and I get to shift gears a little bit,
Sure.
and do some different things with her, and but I think that's the one thing, is that both of them have taught me a great deal about being a father and being a man, and just I don't know. It's
a lot, isn't
it is a lot. It is a lot.
To try to sum up.
What's the most important lesson you've learned in that season?
I think probably patience. I think just because it obviously, as we've talked about, just a 4+ year process with her, and trying to get some sort of tangible idea of, okay, what are we dealing with here, and what could we possibly do? That I was probably not near as patient at the outset of that journey as I am now, naturally, and so I think that's definitely been one big thing that it's allowed me to be a much more patient and also reflective. I think I'm, looking back, I think there's as frustrating as some things have been in different episodes that we've kind of gone through, as frustrating as some of those have been, it's also, I think I'm a lot more reflective than I was initially, and that even the hard times and those really low valleys those are also things to be somewhat grateful for, because they kind of make the peaks end up being a lot more worthwhile.
I love that.
So, yeah,
that's great.
Put that great.
Allie, does Dad help you learn your dance routines and practice your dance routines?
Oh
No,
no.
no, we're out.
You're on your own on that one. Huh?
Yeah, that's mom.
Yeah, I guess
That's mom.
mom being a
He's
teacher
not
helps
doing
with
any
that.
pirouettes or
Yeah.
anything like
We have definitely missed meeting families in person, and the two families we are featuring this month jumped us back into that in the best possible way. If you are looking for a way to tangibly join Go Shout Love in doing amazing things for these amazing families with kids on rare medical journeys, then check out this month's Same Storm, Different Boat design that is inspired by Maddy and Mady. Separated by only 80 miles, these sweet girls are navigating their own unique medical journeys, but have many experiences and battles that they share with each other and other kiddos who are also on rare medical journeys. Every purchase in January will be used to help cover the costs of medical and mobility equipment for Maddy and Mady not covered by insurance. Visit our website at goshout.love to support Maddy and Mady through the purchase of a t-shirt, sweater, hoodie, tumbler, or other items. Our next episode will focus on another amazing family and an incredible kiddo you won't want to miss. Stay tuned and go shout love.